The new Hunter Region Mail Centre, 9 days old, already with its fair share of teething trouble. $800,000 worth of computerised sorting machine has been installed. It can get through 35,000 letters per hour. The only problem, it spits almost half of them back out.
Would be rejecting about 40% of the handwritten envelopes at this stage. So that's got to go to a secondary sort. Hence
the delay. Frustrating for the public, sure. Doubly frustrating for staff.
It is because we take pride in the service we provide in Newcastle, and with these major changes around here, we thought it would happen more quickly than what it is. So it is frustrating, yes.
Again today, the sensitive sorter rejected boxes of letters. So, where are letter writers falling down? Some examples. Underlining words. Wrong. Illegible postcodes. Wrong again. I'll take this one for instance. Now this company has its logo all over the paper. Now the computers read that and just chucked it out immediately. What Australia Post is considering doing is suggesting to some businesses that they get back to basics and write on white.
We intend to go out and look at their business mail and show the reasons why it can be rejected.
This brochure outlines how to address an envelope. Things should be back to normal by tomorrow. Australia Post simply wants people to do things to the letter. Anthony Griffiths, NBN News.
Thousands of people around the country have found a pleasant surprise in their mail, a telecom bill that is well within the budget. However, all the calls from the last quarter were not charged. Phone users were only billed for the rental and service charges. According to Telecom, a program change to their computers is the reason for the mistake. Telecom has moved to rectify the problem. Customers who were undercharged will receive a new bill within a fortnight. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It was an array of North Coast surfing talent. Teams came from Port Macquarie, Woolgoolga, Saltwater, Bear Bluff, Nambucca, Foster. Coffs Harbour doubled its chances, entering 2 teams. And that was a move which paid off. The number 1 team winning its way through to the state titles, which will be held in Wollongong later this year. Second, Port Macquarie, with Woolgoolga third. Among the tournament's top performers, Phil Rootbright and Mick Campbell. From surf to scrums, the touring Argentinian side doing battle today against Coffs Harbour. The visitors were victors. Coffs had no answer. Argentina ran in 6 tries for a comprehensive 28-0 whitewash.
Speaking at an Australian Labor Party assembly in Newcastle yesterday, the Shadow Health Minister expressed concern about the government's plan to have the Port Macquarie Hospital built and operated by private contractors. He claims patient care could be jeopardised and the selection of medical staff could be based on cost rather than expertise. The state government will subsidise the operation of the hospital so that public patients can use the facilities. However, Dr F. Shorgy says by doing this, the government could be required to pay an ever-increasing public bed subsidy. His concerns are shared by many in the community who have already called for the resignation of their local member, Wendy Machin. Dr F. Shorgy says the government has failed to recognise the depth of community opposition to the plan.
I believe Port Macquarie privatisation of their hospital could lose the National Party that seat. It is such a contentious issue there, and quite understandably. It'll cost the taxpayers more. It certainly won't guarantee health services on need. It may in fact move to the American style, where you cannot get health care unless you've got the money, and you don't get health care if you're poor. Now that would be a tragedy for Australia, who believes in a fair go.
Health Minister John Hannaford reacted angrily today, saying Dr F. Shorgy's assertions were unfounded scare tactics and that they cast insult on the professional standards of medical staff who will transfer from the Hastings Hospital when the new hospital is built.
The 20-year-old university student was going over some of his homework today with Knights advisor, former Australian player John Dorahy. Rodwell's tactical kicking was a trump card in a pre-season game against Canberra. Now he's ready to get serious in the Winfield Cup.
Every youngster, growing up dreams of playing first grade, and this is a good start to the season.
Rodwell's move into first grade has filled a void in the Knights lineup.
I don't think you need to be Einstein on rugby league to realise that kicking has been a problem for us.
No real surprises in the team for the Steelers clash. The only problem for Coach Waite, Allinson, Herman, Corcoran and Ainsker unavailable due to injury. Illawarra will be running off a big high with their win in the Challenge Cup, outgunning favourites the Brisbane Broncos.
It's an unknown factor whether that will give them an enormous positive or whether they will come down a fraction from the high of winning their first major trophy. A young side, we'll know more about that 4:30 Sunday.
No wood chips! No wood chips! No wood chips!
Protesters were on the harbour early, waiting for the arrival of the Ryco 2. At 7:30 this morning, tugs guided the bulk carrier to the Kooragang berth.
If you go down to the woods today, you're in for a big surprise.
The Ryco 2 is in Newcastle to load wood chips for Japan. Demonstrators in canoes and kayaks gave way to sighs. The protesters didn't delay the docking of the ship, but they did register their complaint.
The Wilderness Society is committed, both in Newcastle and nationally, to seeing the end of native forest logging and the wood chipping of those native forests overseas to Japan for the production of paper.
The police arrested 2 protesters.
We're wet and we're freezing.
They were later charged with unlawful entry and bailed to appear in Newcastle local court next month. Jane Anderson, NBN News.
Wyong's great chemical debate began in the late 1980s when a court case virtually labelled whole categories of industry offensive or hazardous. Based on the result of the case, the group Central Coast Against Chemicals threatened to take Bayer, the owner of local chemical manufacturer ChemCon, to court. But instead, the company complied with the group's demands for a series of environmental impact statements which led to a rezoning application by Bayer. Today, Wyong Shire Council was to consider that application, but the meeting was cancelled. Bayer withdrew its application because of the new State Environmental Planning Policy No. 33, gazetted on Friday. The policy overturns the court-made law, meaning industry can now again be assessed on a case-by-case basis. It also changes the definitions of hazardous and offensive. Outside the council chambers today, council members expressed their surprise at the move.
Yesterday afternoon late, I was first informed that in fact a gazettal notice had been issued. Now it's no coincidence, and I'm going to, I hope, convince you people that we've been gazumped by this Griner government.
What appalls me so much that this has come about, that we, the council, had a policy not to allow any obnoxious or hazardous industries into the Shire. But overnight, here we have the state government overriding our own policy.
It's also appalled members of CAC, who say studies of ChemCon reveal a number of problems.
There are many safety discrepancies up there at the plant in terms of the fire control, particularly fire control measures and emergency evacuation measures.
In the next few months, ChemCon is likely to submit a development application to Council. According to the Planning Department, it must fulfil a number of strict safety and environmental provisions and will be put on public display for a month.
Roo-ball had its official kick-off in northern New South Wales today, both as a school and club sport, as well as being another strike in the anti-drug offensive. It's a modified form of soccer devised by Newcastle's former Liverpool star, Craig Johnston.
Kids don't sort of get relegated to one position. They can run around anywhere. There's no offside, so they can just realistically play for fun, that's all.
Like you can hear in the background, the kids are really enjoying it, you know. I mean, I suppose that's the main thing about a sport. If the kids can go out and enjoy a game, then they'll persist with it, you know.
The game encourages youngsters to build on their individual potentials, free of competitive pressures. Socceroo captains Ned Zelich and Anissa Tan, along with Newcastle Breakers stars, championed the anti-drugs message. And even though some of the youngsters were swamped by the slogans, the message of enjoying some good, clean fun seemed to be getting across.
You'd have sworn it was a public holiday. The people were out in droves. These blokes had no problems getting a look at the track, standing several hands higher than the rest, the Falcons basketball squad having a day at the races. Despite yesterday's rain, the dollars are up.
The TAB held about 2.41 million yesterday on Classic Day. On course we held about $760,000 on the tote, and the crowd was 4,297, which is about 150 up on last year.
The main event of the day, the $150,000 Carlton Newmarket. Blue Boss was the raging hot favourite, and she delivered the goods. Number 2, Blue Boss, paid $340 and $150. Number 13, Sedgwin, $5.90. And third, number 1, Arc Regal, paid $2.50. The Quinella, $43.30. And the Trifecta, $383.40.
Up until 1989, telecom dominated Australia's telecommunications industry. Deregulation changed that.
That's meant that telecom are not the only players in the telecommunications industry, and it's allowed private contractors to enter the industry and undertake, in this case, customer premises work.
With the market opened up, the need developed for a training course to allow people to gain telecom-type skills like wiring telephones. Last year, the Hunter Technology Development Centre began devising a course to provide electrical technicians with the background they need to sit for an exam with the industry's regulating body, Australian Telecommunications Authority. Passing this accredits them as licensed operators.
He can do telecommunications cabling work, that is, putting in all the cabling for telephones, faxes, modems, as well.
The intense but friendly rivalry between the Knights and the Steelers will be at fever pitch now that the Southerners have won a major trophy such as the Challenge Cup. From that point of view, Illawarra couldn't have asked for a better build-up to the competition proper, with hard-fought games under their belts. For the Knights, their preparation has been steady rather than spectacular, although against Canberra the Knights turned in an eye-catching performance. And the feeling in the home camp is one of optimism.
Very positive, our club, and the club is like any other club, I suppose, at this stage of the season. Very, very anxious to get started now on the what I call the marathon of the Winfield Cup.
Boasting an awesome forward pack, the Knights will build a platform before spreading the ball to a backline that has seen plenty of the ball already this year and has responded with some scintillating moves. Illawarra are also well balanced with lock Ian Russell and halfback John Simons linchpins in a young and highly successful combination. However, in less than 48 hours, all the recruiting, the hours spent in the gym, on the road, sprint training and trial games will be put to the test. On the line, 2 precious Winfield Cup points.
I know from the personal contact with the players how important it is to get a good start. One, from their personal aspirations for the season, and 2, the aspirations of the football side and the three football sides for the club this year.
The two-day Sevens tournament has brought together clubs from the Lower Hunter Rugby League and also clubs from other regions, all chasing the lucrative prizes up for grabs. And even in Sevens events, the boys get a bit serious, with the odd injury or two just part and parcel of the day's work, with some a little worse for wear. It's also hoped that players can get a good final hit out before the season of 13-a-side finally gets underway. At University Number 1, the grand final of the Newcastle District Cricket Competition pitted old foes Charlestown and Belmont against each other, and Belmont's Mark Curry won the toss and batted. For Belmont, Steve Moroney made 41, Steve Clarkson 31, Kevin Bray 27, and the innings of the day was reserved for the skipper. Curry blazed away to notch a masterly 109 before being dismissed late in the day. The best bowlers for Charlestown were Tony Gilbertson and Anthony Stewart, each with 3 wickets. So for Charlestown to regain the crown they lost to Belmont last year, they will need 280, a very gettable score at University.
Green Valleys provided the backdrop for the rally, held at Barrington, some 20 kilometres southwest of Gloucester. Drivers were required to complete the 3.4 kilometre course a maximum of 6 times, with their best 2 times recorded. Wet weather made for very slippery conditions, providing some spectacular action. On the straights, cars were reaching speeds of up to 160 kilometres an hour, but it was on the bends where seconds were saved. At the end of the day, this proved vital, with just a few seconds separating the top 3 place-getters. First place went to Sydney's Craig Stallard, his consistent driving proving the difference. Reigning rally sprint driver John Mitchell from Wyong had to settle for second, while local driver Scott McCloy in his Mazda RX2 came in third. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
A visit to a former childhood haunt in bushland near Belmont turned sour for 2 young men after one fell 8 metres down a gully, shattering his leg. 21-year-old Roger Henning and his friend Sean Parks had ridden their push bikes into an area where they discovered an old rope swing they used to play on as boys. It held out for Sean, but then snapped when Roger took a swing, sending him crashing onto rocks below. Leaving his friend in great pain at the bottom of the gully, Sean Parks raised the alarm from a nearby house. The police rescue squad negotiated difficult terrain to lower a stretcher to the injured man, who was then hauled up. He was treated on the scene and then taken to the John Hunter Hospital, where he remains after having a pin inserted into his fractured leg.
In a wave of crime, Henderson's Cake Shop, Perrott Saddlery and a local shopping centre were all broken into. The sports store was the worst hit, with $5,000 worth of goods stolen. Chandler's had its front window smashed and more than $1,000 worth of merchandise taken. The store's manager believes it's a sign of the economic times.
I think it's not only Moree that it's happening everywhere, I think. You know, it's probably with a recession and that you don't know what's really behind it all.
Across town on the Inverell Road, the local radio station's transmitter was damaged. Police are investigating whether the damage was intentional or as a result of a malfunction. It's believed this incident is not linked with the activities in town. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
It's nicknamed the Pony, and it's been signed on for a 5-year sleeper replacement and track upgrading program with the State Rail Authority. The Italian-designed machine lays 400 metres of track an hour, putting down 1,400 concrete sleepers in a day, where manual labour would manage only about 300.
I'd say you'd be looking at about 8
to 10 weeks of track laying, 5 days a week to get to Patterson from Talara.
It's a $4.5 million project requiring about 80,000 concrete sleepers at $42 each to cover a 50-kilometre stretch between Talara outside Maitland through to Dungog. Rail bogie wheels give way to caterpillar tracks as the machine uses hydraulic grabbers to propel itself along the line. The rails are splayed apart, the timber sleepers plucked out and then stacked by a conveyor. The track ballast or gravel is smoothed, ready for the new concrete sleepers that are then fastened by a following work crew. In spite of its sophistication, it will take the pony 2 years to get to Dungog. The completion of the upgrading program through to Brisbane is still a long way down the line.
"150 years of racing in Armidale brought thousands of punters to the track from across the state and the ACT. A half-day holiday in the city also ensured locals could make it to the track, and it seems everyone came with plenty of money to spend on the 10-card program. The Jockey Club reported substantial increases in turnover on both the tote and on course.
Well, the tote was up considerably, $300,000, which is very, very good, 1.7 million versus 1.3 last year. That was extremely good, and of course the on-course tote was up a whopping 35%, and the club are very happy with that because we do get an extra dollar out of the on-course tote, and that was wonderful for those that supported the tote tremendously well, and also the bookmakers were up 30,000, so overall it was 1.7 million turnover, which is the best that the Armidale Jockey Club have ever done in 150 years.
"18-year-old Carl Mason of the Newcastle suburb of Birmingham Gardens died instantly when the semi-trailer went to the right-hand side of the highway to avoid a motorcycle waiting to turn into a driveway. In doing so, it crashed head-on into the southbound sedan, pushing it down an embankment before careering on itself into the river. The truck driver wasn't seriously hurt. With Saturday's torrential rain, the area became a quagmire, and it took until this afternoon, using 3 bulldozers and 2 giant cranes, for the wreckage to be removed.
The load and the prime mover was down the creek. The cranes could not get down anywhere near the trucks to do any lift, so we had to tow it. Unfortunately, the prime mover then jammed into the creek bed.
There were major complications. The semi was right alongside a bridge. There was no access to it other than the highway itself, so traffic had to be diverted for several hours each day. Also, because the load was a consignment of pencil pitch bound for an aluminium smelter in Queensland, the Environment Protection Authority kept a close eye on the proceedings.
It would do no harm to the water at all. It's inert. It's 98% carbon.
The Newcastle Accident Investigation Squad is completing an inquiry.
These women are members of the Anglican Mothers Union. The organisation began in England and was first established in Australia in 1892.
We're especially concerned with Christian family life. We help families that have met with adversity. We do work, for instance, in the Warramai Children's Court. We run a coffee and care program there.
While society has changed greatly over the last century, the essence of the organisation has remained the same.
The Bishop has asked us to bear in mind that our homes should be homes of peace and love, be holy places, that where we can set an example for other Christian people.
The position of promotions manager was due to be filled this weekend from 7 shortlisted applicants. But today, chairman of the association, Eric Richardson, called an emergency meeting to discuss the matter. He says council has commissioned an independent consultant to look at the workings of the association and develop a tourist plan for the valley. Mr. Richardson says that plan will probably lead to the restructuring of the association and perhaps the abolition of the advertised position.
And I believe that we were probably being unethical making an appointment, or if we were to make an appointment, which we couldn't really guarantee a tenure and we couldn't guarantee a job description.
The $35,000 position of promotions manager will remain vacant until the consultant's report is completed, which could be at least 6 months. The association will meet again on Saturday to decide what to do until then.
According to the miners, their industry is in crisis and hundreds will join the unemployment line before mid-year. 200 jobs will go when the Leamington Underground mine winds up in July, and the latest round of export coal price settlements between companies and overseas customers will cut profits to a level taking several Hunter mines to the brink of extinction.
The average profit, as we understand, for the last 12 months was slightly in excess of $1 per tonne. The decrease in price is $1 per tonne, so that would put most of the industry in a precarious position.
The management of the Bloomfield Colliery's underground mine near East Maitland confirmed today that they've put their workers on notice. If productivity doesn't pick up within the next month, the mine will close, with an estimated loss of 100 jobs. Bloomfield Collieries disputes the number of jobs in jeopardy, but that comes as cold comfort to miners facing bleak prospects elsewhere in the industry. At a mass stop work meeting of the Northern District United Mine Workers Federation at Cessnock today, members voted unanimously to campaign for the retention of jobs and mines in the area. They'll fight any possible flow-on domestic price reductions, as well as the introduction of coal from other areas to make up the shortfall in power generation stocks resulting from mine closures. And the unionists have threatened to withdraw from productivity negotiations, saying that at the moment, with proprietors caving into the international price pressures, the workers are being sold out.
What we're saying is that federal politicians, state politicians and the employers must accept what we're putting forward and do something about intervening in the marketplace to ensure we get a proper return for Australia's most important export earner. We are the biggest seaborne exporter of coal, and we believe that we could have a major influence on the coal. What happens is that Australian coal producers always seem to cave in first to the overseas consumers, and those prices then flow on to everyone.
The Federation also asserts that government intervention in price fixing would benefit economic recovery. The New South Wales Coal Association is maintaining its argument that it would be inappropriate for government to control market forces and that such a move might adversely affect customer relations. Andrew Lobb reporting for NBN News.
Robert Hardy and his girlfriend were returning to Bankstown in Sydney from Coolangatta. They were about 40 kilometres northeast of Williamtown when the plane's single engine started running roughly.
I brought the power back and it stopped knocking for a while, and then it started again, so I started climbing, and Sydney Flight Service told me to call Williamtown, and that's what I did, and it got worse.
According to Robert, as he approached the runway for the second time, a strong crosswind caught the plane, sweeping it off the edge of the landing strip. The plane landed heavily but safely. The only visible damage, a bent propeller and a broken wheel guard. Domestic flights from the base were delayed for around 10 minutes as the runway was cleared of debris. Robert and his passenger were shaken but unhurt. The plane is owned by the Illawarra Aviation Club.
Hundreds of students and their lecturers are involved in a wide range of environmental sciences at the university. It's a storehouse of information in the rapidly developing field of environmental awareness and planning.
We find that we get a lot of calls from all over the place, from community groups wanting to find out how to deal with government departments asking us how to deal with community groups about environmental conflict. We get industries ringing up and asking what's going on. I find particularly that a lot of industrial groups aren't aware of some of the talent we have, and it's not their fault, it's the fact that the university hasn't sold that talent.
The university is already involved in a number of research and consultancy programs, from water quality and soil erosion testing to occupational health and industry studies. Services on offer have been catalogued and are now up for sale.
One of my objectives, and that of the Centre for Environmental Management, is to get this document out into the public domain, to get it to public utilities, government departments, industry in the Hunter and externally, to community groups, particularly people who are looking after senior high school students who want to give them ideas about where they go next about environmental science. This will tell them.
Lansdowne Engineering has been holding its breath and its workforce since October for the announcement of the state rail contract to build coal wagon bogies. Without any glimmer of hope in sight for the work, the company retrenched 23 of its workers.
As early as August of last year, we recognised that we had far too many people for the orders we were holding. But we recognised there were some opportunities with the SRA, with a major coal wagon contract, and as a result of that, we undertook to bring forward work that isn't due to be delivered till 1993. Now we've basically consumed that work, and we still have no answer from the SRA as to when the coal wagon contract is going to be announced. We've just come to the end of the line. We just cannot afford to continue at the level we are, and we've had to make some retrenchments.
A division of the Newcastle heavy engineering firm Ganinan, Lansdowne Engineering specialises in the fabrication of coal wagon bogies and dump truck bodies. It employs close to 200 people in its Taree and Port Macquarie plants. Lansdowne's management says it can retain its remaining workforce whether or not it is a successful tenderer for the state rail work, but adds that if the work comes through, it could offer an additional 50 to 70 positions for the 18-month duration of the project.
Anyone that has been dismissed as a result of this retrenchment will certainly be given every opportunity to reapply for a position at that time.
The honeysuckle redevelopment plans are being held up as the great white hope for the future of Newcastle. And according to international planning consultant Ian Thomas, if overseas experience is anything to go by, there's good reason for those great expectations.
And when you compare it to what other projects had in North America, and they were able to take the proverbial sow's ear and convert it to a silk purse, honeysuckle could easily do that.
Mr Thomas is a Canadian-based consultant and was one of 2 guest speakers at a special honeysuckle forum late this afternoon. He believes the combination of the CBD's proximity, the waterfront and the abundance of heritage buildings are the ingredients to make honeysuckle a world-class residential and commercial development. Mr Thomas has also bought into the rail link controversy. The ALP argues it should be retained to Newcastle. The consultant believes it should be cut at the Civic.
I think that railroad tracks, as I alluded to earlier, clearly are both physical and psychological barriers, to the downtown core.
The Minister for Local Government, Jerry Peacock, has announced initiatives to push the $1 billion proposal along, including the establishment of a Honeysuckle Development Corporation. Today's other guest speaker, David Lamarchant, has been the chairman of the advisory board to be replaced by the corporation, a change he regards as vital.
A body that has the statutory authority to bring together titles of land and many other things, but also to have the ability to sell, lease, become parts of joint ventures, in fact have the power to make sure the development is able to commence.
The .05 blood alcohol level now applies to boat operators. It's .02 for commercial skippers and those under 18. As well as carrying out safety equipment inspections, the authority will be out in force on all inland waterways, distributing information about the new regulations.
The breath testing is a legislative act now, and that if they're out in the waterway and they happen to have too much to drink, that they can be prosecuted.
Boat operators will be breath tested after accidents or serious breaches of water traffic regulations, which include the dangerous operation of craft around people or property.
We were checking for safety equipment. If during that process of investigating safety equipment we think that someone may be under the influence, then the breath testing equipment will come into force.